I wanted to start with your inspirations, right, to devote lifetime to the music industry. And I think if I had a dollar for everybody who said, "Oh, for me, it was the Ed Sullivan Show and seeing the Beatles," but that was yours, wasn't it, Richie?
How did you guess? How did you get? Well, it was partly. I mean, I came from a music family. My mother had me in doing music at a very young age. So, and my dad was like a musicologist. So it even came before that. I was starting to whack on things that even before Ed Sullivan Show. But yeah, that was when I heard those girls screaming in that Ed Sullivan Show. I went, okay, that's what I want to do. Okay.
So what about you, Pat? Was it similar? I mean, obviously not the Beatles because you're a slightly different era, but was it Michael Jackson and Prince?
Yeah. I mean, I think when I first saw Purple Rain, the whole part about him just being, this magical being to this beautiful woman, and it was all because of his artistic, swagger. I thought that that's something I should definitely try to emulate in my life. So trying to live up to Prince, who can ever fill those shoes? But, Prince was a big one. And Michael Jackson just took over the world when I was a kid, so, couldn't help but feel like he was the king. He was the king of pop.
Your first experience of the Sweet. So again, obviously you're slightly different eras, but Richie, if you were growing up in the 70s in the US, Sweet became very big off of the back of Little Willie, which was more of the pop music side to the band before they got into the whole glam thing.
Well, I mean, here in the US, Sweet, it didn't come really up until Desolation Boulevard. I think it really got a lot of other fans. But I grew up with Deep Purple, Jethro Tull. I loved a lot of the English bands, a lot of the big bands like Buddy Rich Band, and I was into Vanilla Fudge, and so when Led Zeppelin came across, I love Led Zeppelin, and Jimi Hendrix. Mitch Mitchell, I mean, was one of my favorites because he was jazz. I was a jazz drummer. So when I ran across Sweet later on, running across Deep Priest, I knew some of the hits, but frankly, I really didn't know that much about Sweet. And when I met Steve Priest, I was working with Keith Emerson at the time, and we were doing this big event. And then I went, oh, who's this guy? Who's this Mick Tucker guy? Wow, what a find. I mean, and we came from the same school. It was Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, and Sandy Nelson. I mean, it was about surf music and then the big band stuff and then the English music and the blues.
It must have been great to discover this, Pat, because it was a whole new level of hedonism, in a different era. And everybody will have heard about, the tales of the Who and Zeppelin and all of that. But then you get this glam rock group that literally takes Europe and to a degree, some of North America, Canada in particular, by storm. And they are living the rock and roll life.
Yeah, there was my first introduction to music before Prince or Michael Jackson was my sister's record collection, and she had a stack of albums with Tattoo You and the Tramp album, and I remember those, and I remember Desolation Boulevard was in there along with Highway to Hell and some others. The Boston records, I remember opening up the Boston record and seeing the glittery shoes. I remember seeing, listening to Sweet, and just it makes you feel a certain way. And it's funny, you fast forward years, it was actually Mitch Perry who joined Sweet in the first place long before Steve Priest died. And I remember studying the music, falling asleep, and I had this dream that I was actually in the band. I can remember seeing my bell bottoms on, all the cars were 72, 73 or whatever, and I'm walking down the street on my way to the show with some chick, and I woke up and I was like, wow, this is kind of eerie. And then it wasn't, they fell off from communication with me, and they came back to me in 2019. I think I finally joined the band, and it's just been trippy. It was really incredible to see a song with the name Sweet on it go up on the roster. We have a song out there that I'm part of this incredible legacy. I just couldn't be grateful. It's crazy.
What is also incredible about this, the whole legacy, is the fact that these songs resonate as much now as they did 50 years ago when they first came out. They are simply ageless tracks, songs. They will sound, and it will be the same in 50 years' time. And there are very, very few bands that can say that.
Yeah.
I mean, 18 years of doing this, I just never get tired of playing these songs. They are just ageless. They are incredible. I mean, what can I say? The whole repertoire is simply amazing. What they did.
Yeah, it's an electricity that we can't really describe. I've gone out on stage. We went out and what town were we in? Richie, I don't remember, but it was 106 degrees out. We were playing with like Vita Ford and somebody else. The music just starts getting into my bloodstream. I start to vibrate on a level that I can't describe. And the singing and everything is just completely secondary. Like, it's like I forget all technique. I forget everything I learned, and I'm just fulfilled by this music, that's pumping me. And I literally was hitting a note, I'm out there in front of the crowd, literally starting to black out. So I go down to my knees and I don't stop hitting the note. And the next thing I know, I black completely out. And I'm right back. I stand back up. I realize I didn't miss anything, and I continue the song. And that happened. I don't pass out. That was the only time I ever blacked out from the heat. But it's just it's proof that it's just like the music. Just it takes a hold of you and it doesn't let go.
So many people have said, haven't they? Axl Rose has said it. Slash has said it. Motley Crue have said it. Dee Snider's said it. That the Sweet were the influence. Yeah, they were their influence, and the reason that they got into doing what they were doing.
Yeah. The harmonies, the gritty guitars, it made it all so, it just masculine and sexy and feminine and like just an indescribable sense of perfect music. It's just the talent level was enormous. The look level was on point. Everything about the band just makes sense.
Richie, you were around that scene around the late 70s, moving into the early 80s with Chuck Wright and his band Satyr, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And I always remember, because we had Chuck Wright on not that long ago, actually, talking about his new project, but the good old days. I mean, they were very nearly a big thing, weren't they? Because at the time he says, look, we were a bigger draw than Van Halen were, before obviously Van Halen was signed. So what do you remember about that time?
It was an amazing time. We formed in 75, and Pat Reagan, who ended up moving on and producing, Kiss and Rainbow and Deep Purple. I mean, Pat was another Keith Emerson on keyboards. He had this thing called the Beast, and with Chuck on bass, we were just locked in. At 21, it was like psychic or something, the way we played together. And then years later, we ended up doing the Heaven and Earth thing. But we just played great together. And this guy named Bob Steffen, I mean, you'd go into this Starwood in Hollywood, you'd see you'd see Eddie Van Halen, you see Bob Steffen up there with these big posters. And Rhodes was coming up, but it was an amazing time. And, we wore the glam outfits and we were full on in 75, 76. And when we took the stage at Starwood, and then we ended up going up to Canada and playing with Alice Cooper. I was 22 at the time. And that really was the first taste of me with this incredible original progressive music. We were close to being the next big thing. I mean, it's amazing stories go along with the whole Satyr situation. We're the first ones that used the lasers, those, I forget what they're called. We had a show. We played with Aerosmith at the Starwood, and we ended with Helter Skelter, and they came out on stage with Helter Skelter. And the Starwood was a Toys in the Attic time. And they were backstage getting loaded, and they didn't know it. And we had lasers going across, and we had the screens and the smoke, and, we had a whole roadie crew. Things were exploding on stage. I mean, it was like amazing. And they just came in, as Dr. Jones and the Interns. And I talked to Tyler about this years later, Oh yeah, now I remember, but we ended with Helter Skelter. We tore the place apart, tore the roof off the place, and here comes out, they come out with Starklight playing Helter Skelter, and the place was packed, and everybody's like looking around, going, "What?" It's pretty funny.
I was going to say, wasn't this all to do with a friend of yours who worked at some laboratory somewhere? The reason you were getting all these lasers and everything.
Exactly. We had the best laser show. People would come to our shows. You'd have Richie Blackmore and the guys from Wasp before there was a Wasp, and Glenn Hughes, and everybody would. They were just like, "What the hell is this band?" We called it Ultra Rock. So there was. We went through a lot of changes in LA. What changed is all of a sudden it was new wave and disco. You're always chasing your tail in this business. And so we were, if our manager, who was a drug dealer, okay, if he would have taken us to England, we would have been like, forget about it. But, he was busy. And then we got, the Eagles and this whole thing. And then the band, we replaced the singer and typical band stuff. But Satyr was a force to be reckoned with. It was serious freaking band.
So what were you doing at this point then, Patrick? Presumably you were going through adolescence.
I was probably playing, my high school or my junior high, maybe by that time, by junior high, I already had a band. We were covering like The Clash, Metallica, Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But this is way after that. So yeah. I think my first taste of like the rock scene in Los Angeles anyway was I think I was 16, and a friend of mine and his girlfriend, she had a friend that lived down in LA, so we wanted to take a trip and check out the Sunset Strip. And at that point, it was like there was still such a huge scene down, and we put on the Sunset Boulevard, and I never was ever after that. It was just like a music festival, They closed the roads. You couldn't drive cars through. It was just so many people with hairspray and girls and sex. And like people doing cocaine on the sidewalk. There was, a lot of stuff happening in the alleyways that you're not. There was just debauchery and craziness everywhere. And you could walk into any club, and every club was sold out every single night. You had the Roxy, you had Gazzarri's, you had the Whiskey, the Key Club, Gazzarri's was the Key Club. You had that house, and you had the Viper Room, which was then what was called the Central, and you couldn't get in. It was just you had to, either know somebody or bum rush the place, to get in, because every place was packed and everybody was trying to make it. The street was covered. You couldn't see the asphalt. It was all just flyers of rock bands handing out their flyers, trying to get you to come to their shows, which nobody actually. Looking back, you didn't even need to try because everybody was there anyway. And that allowed. So I think I went home. It was maybe a few months before I packed back down to LA.
Was this the greatest era? Now I know people talk about the 50s and the birth of rock and roll in the 60s, the Stones and but was it really the 80s? When you look back at the music that was produced there. And I know you get a lot of journalists calling it the hair metal era, which doesn't really do the music justice because it was better than that. But was it the greatest era?
I'll tell you, the 70s, being at the Rainbow when it first opened and going up on top of that and being there with Entwistle and The Who and sitting next to Bonham and being there with the singer from... it was amazing. That was a 70s thing that was happening. And here I'm in Satyr. And we're like the biggest local band, so of course we're getting all the, a lot of things were happening. But we were like, you got Deep Purple, you got Blackmore sitting in another booth, and they're the big stars, and we're the big local band. And come to find out, Pat Reagan, who was working with Blackmore, he goes, "Yeah, we wanted you in Rainbow. We were checking you out, Satyr's keyboard player." We hear these stories, but still, the integration of the local LA thing into the 70s, into the 80s, and like what Patrick said, what an amazing time on the Strip. You see David Lee Roth, or right at you go to Bordello and you see Axl Rose hanging out, right when they're breaking, or you're rehearsing at Mates and you got Guns N' Roses rehearsing with one of my many bands that I was rehearsing with, and talking to the drummer from, it was just, it was a great, the 90s started killing thing, let's face it, but we've survived. We live to rock.
You must be then a believer in fate, really, because when you look at how this whole Sweet experience began for you, I mean, Steve Priest had been living over there for a long time, and it was due entirely to this fundraiser for the Hurricane Katrina. Now, if Hurricane Katrina hadn't happened, your life might have taken a completely different route, but it did. And so you're at the fundraiser, and he just gets up on stage and you do Fox on the Run, and then that's it. You're off on the 19 year journey.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, right before that, I was playing with Bobby Kimball from Toto. So I was touring. I had 3 days to learn the whole Toto set, and I worked with Jeff Porcaro before that. I had 3 days, and we had a 10,000-seater that we had to do, and no rehearsals. And so here we do a 10,000, and I've got to learn all Rosanna, Hold the Line, everything. And I played this show. And so Bobby Kimball gig was cooking along. And then when we got together with Keith Emerson, and I was playing with Louis Johnson for Brothers Johnson. So I had a very interesting, and I was doing Heaven and Earth, and I had a lot of projects. So when I was asked to be, because of Keith Emerson, when I was asked to play the Hurricane Katrina event, I started playing, Howard Leese got up, and and Emerson, we did a set with Emerson, and then Slash and Lukather got up. And so we were playing some ZZ Top with Slash, and then it was one act, and then Priest came up, and I had to learn Fox on the Run, and all that. I was ready, I was prepared, and we played that. And after that show, he says, "Man, wow," and that's when it was like magic. I mean, to be part of this legacy, and for him to ask me to become a partner with him was pretty exciting, and it's been a great ride for 18 years, and it's just like it's a part of our blood,
So what was it? What was the draw? I mean, like you said, you had Toto, you had Bobby Kimball, you had Keith Emerson, you had all these other stuff. What was it that drew you to Steve Priest to be involved with something which, it could either have happened or it could have been something that lasted, 5 minutes, really. So what was it? What was the thing?
Well, what the thing was is we got together to rehearse, and we started putting the band together, and we got a guy named Joe Retta in the band he was in a kind of a Queen tribute, and we heard the way he sang, and then we started, we heard Stuart Smith, and we heard that, and so we got together. I had a mansion in Woodland Hills at the time, and I had a full recording studio, and when we got together and we started playing, we just so it was about booking gigs, and it was about, our first gig was the Whiskey, or Ventura, and then we did the Whiskey, like Desolation Boulevard. And when I started understanding the history of the band, and when he says, "Listen, Richie, you're the first drummer that wanted me to come out of retirement," I took it very personal. I really appreciated it. And it was so weird how he goes, "You're the first guy that can swing and create that thing." That's how he approached me on it. So what did it was we got this, we were dealing with we did like a showcase for some different agents. They came down, and they booked us right away on some shows. And when all of a sudden America started going, "Oh my God, we got the Sweet," Andy had done some stuff in Canada in the 90s, but they hadn't been back, and the guys were passing away, with Brian and Nick. And so it was the next step, we got the trademark, and we started booking gigs, and I saw a future in Sweet because, you can be a side guy, but how many Sticks and how many Foreigners and how many Sweets that have sold 55 million records are out there? And I realized that this was like an incredible opportunity for me to be part of a brand and a legacy. And that's what really changed my course in my life. And, I kept on going with my solo stuff and everything that I do. But when you play festivals, you're playing with Boston and Joan Jett and doing big things. It really upped the game, for me.
So, Patrick, when the call came through and said, "So how do you fancy it, the Sweet?" How long did it take you to make a decision?
It was when the phone rings, it was Mick Perry. And when I just answered the phone with a yes, I didn't even know what he was going to ask me. It was just, I was so in love with his playing and his character. He's a great guy. And then when he explained that it was Sweet, I just remember again, like you mentioned, those interviews with Axl Rose, who was my hero. later let me down, but that's a totally different story. But I was tickled. I was just completely tickled. So it was exciting to learn the stuff, and then I feel like it falls right in my range. When we first got together with the guys at the rehearsal hall, and I could see it I felt it. Well, it was just like, this is perfect.
And the first moment that you got on stage and you're looking at the set list, I imagine what happens is that you go and you're looking at it, and it actually brings a smile to your face before you've actually performed any of it, because you just think, well, this is just going to be great, isn't it? This is just going to be 2 great hours of my life.
Yeah. It's that way now. It's really just super. It's nothing but excitement. It's just it's like we're going out to have a great time. And I think the audience feels that. I know they feel that, because they're just pumped. Like, we get every audience is on their feet, just going nuts. But the first show, I remember, there's a lot of words, a lot of obscure words, like a lot of stuff doesn't.
Yes.
A lot of the songs you have to you really have to create your own idea about what the story is about. I don't know if they're talking about. It's funny how relative it is to today's day and time too, with like sexuality being the way it is, because they sounded confident in where we are confused. I feel like I'm almost I'm able to guide people through their sexuality today with Sweet's music, among many other things. But I remember that first show we did. I ran off stage a couple times just to double check that I had the lyrics right. And luckily there's some sections in the music where it's really musical, where I can actually go off and check, So the first time I looked at that set list, it looked like a skateboard ramp that was 50 feet tall. And I was like, here we go, but I've been around the block, I've for the guys from Guns N' Roses. I've toured all over the world for pretty big bands doing festivals like Wacken and all that other stuff. So I wasn't scared. I just wanted to get it right. They're big shoes to fill, and I knew that.
What was Steve Priest like as an individual? I mean, obviously you spent a great deal of time with him. Did he used to regale you with stories of the golden era?
Yeah, you'd get a lot of different things from Steve. He'd go to tours because of his bandmates passing away, to remembering the old days. He was a jolly fella that really he was both sides. I mean, Steve was a tough guy in some ways. I mean, he could be quite precocious, so to speak. I mean, Steve was just a rebel at heart. And that's where that music, a lot of it came from Steve. That rebellious attitude was just amazing that Steve did. But, he was just you get him 1-to-1, and he'd just be, he's a man of few words, really, a lot of times. And he'd have that smile. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you see the interviews with him in print, it's literally 2-word answers. It's an interviewer's nightmare. What is your favorite story of his? Out of all the things that he's told you over the years and he's recalled, what is either the funniest or the most memorable story that he told you?
As we know, Steve was getting a little unstable. He's pretty heavy. And, it reminds me of another story with Gary Richrath when he was over at my house, when he slipped and fell, and he hit his head on the ground from REO, right? And we thought he passed away, and then all of a sudden, he gets up and starts partying again. Well, same kind of thing happened with Priest. We're like at some hotel, and we're going through it, and we were partying pretty late in the hotel. And I remember he was walking through the entrance, and he somehow slipped, and he went down, and his head went through like this glass area and just shattered this thing in this hotel at the entrance. And same thing, he just got up, and it was like nothing happened. And the next morning, here's this big hole in the glass. I mean that, and we had other things like that. I mean. Steve also, one time we told him, hey, come out on stage, we're going to, and he got there early, And we all come in for the show. It's supposed to start at 8:00. He's there at 7:30 talking to the audience, and he's got his cape on, and he's just talking to everybody. And we go, Steve, what are you doing out here? He goes, well, I got there. I mean, he was just a hoot. You just never knew what to expect with Priest, and he loved the attention. It was so important that he got Sweet out again the way he wanted Sweet to be looked at into the future, because when they broke up in 81, it was so important to him. That's the reason he never went along with the other guys, even though they had talked about it. But in 2007, when we put this band together, you could just see the pure joy of him reliving Sweet again. And it just mattered a lot to him. And it continued all the way till his passing.
And it was his request, was it not, that you continued to take the band out and you continue to keep the band in the public eye?
Yeah, it was important for him to. I was the last one to see him, and the family asked me to do the eulogy, and so yes, he was. He felt like we were a dangerous band. Keep my legacy alive, yes, and that's what he really wanted us to keep moving ahead. He was hopefully going to come out of his situation, and we would have kept on going with forever. But we made a critical decision with the family after, we still had to really huddle and say, hey, should we keep on doing this? And everybody made that decision that we should in Steve's name and the band's name for what they created. And it's just we bring it to the audience. That's the bottom line, is we bring that Steve Priest energy the way he depicted what he wanted to have this with guys that he really believed in, and vice versa.
Now let's, Patrick, talk a bit about the future, because you've released in the last 4 or 5 weeks Little Miracle, the first new tracks. Presumably there are more to come. How pleased were you with the reaction? Because it was a great video, by the way, and it really, you listen to it once, then you listen to it twice, and then you think, yeah, there's a bit of an earworm going on here. So how did it feel?
Well, it was that little earworm that convinced all of us, I think, that we were supposed to move forward with that song first. It was my first choice because I wanted to come out and really slap people around like tweets around when I was first introduced to them. With major musical, integrity and, left turn here, right turn there, vocals going shit, So I wrote one. I shared it with Jimmy, and we kind of developed a demo going into the sessions that led to Little Miracle, and we recorded a few other songs as well, and there's some in the back pocket too, but the next one coming out is basically going to be a brainchild of all of us, with right. And they're finally allowing my influence to kind of guide where the direction of the next track. So I'm of course you get excited when it's your baby, but it's our baby, and Little Miracle became the same exact thing. At the beginning I was reluctant, but we're a family, so we talked about it. Richie was so in love with it that you just have to sit back and fall in love with it. And then, of course, when things are meant to be, you get signs from the universe, right? And like here I was thinking, I was dating 6 or 7 women at one time, thinking I'm never going to fall in love. And then this song comes to light, and we're about to put out this song, and here I am falling in love with this girl, and we put her in the music video, and then the next thing I know, I love the damn song, and now it's like our song. So it's happening.
And so, I suppose the big question is: is this the beginning of an album that is to come?
Yeah, the key thing here is that albums are not done the same way they were done. You release songs periodically and aggregate them together, and then you sell them at shows or however you do that. So yes, much more music coming, and also some great videos of us playing at the same place where Little Miracle was cut. We've got some great videos coming out, a live record as well. So people can really see what the band is live, and why this chemistry of this band is really, it blows my mind. How to have Patrick, I had no idea that Patrick was going to bring to the table what he brings to the fans And he's got that, he's got a little bit of a Conlish look to him. We could have a nice baby face out there.
Compare me to Kamala Harris.
Conlish face, yeah. But I mean, he has just brought so much. He brought so much to the table, So you're going to see that now with some videos, couple of videos coming out. And then it's just going to keep on coming with the next release, which is the one that Patrick just mentioned.
Richie and Stevie and really all of us have, we're taking this very seriously, and I think it gets a little bit more serious every day. We got a team around us. Like, we get on Zoom calls with a group of like 8 guys, like, that are all trying to figure out exactly how to do this the right way. So it's important to all of us that we move forward in a direction Steve would be proud of. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of backlash, with Andy's band overseas.
I was going to ask you about that. Is there a relationship of any sort with Andy's band, or just two different entities?
As the newcomer to the group, I've been taking this position of, we've got to respect Andy and love Randy, which we do. We all, of course, because he's part of, he's a huge part of the legacy. He is Sweet. But at the same time, we can't, you can't go to bed at night and give up what Steve bestowed us with, which was to carry on Sweet, how we see fit, how he sees fit. So there's, it's funny. We just threw up a song on, now, again, like I said, I didn't have an argument. I wanted us all to be very supportive of one another, but we put out our single, and now it's been pushed to the side from the entire catalog that Sweet has. And up until this point, all of the songs sat together. I don't know if he feels intimidated, or he feels like he has to put some, he has to put some kind of offense against it, put up some kind of a defense, keep us from moving in a direction that we want to. But we're fighting.
And so then the future, so new tracks, new videos, plenty of touring to come. Any desire to play over in Europe?
Yes. Yeah. I have a serious connection there. It's funny because they just played the Wacken Festival, and the guys that own Wacken, they own the record label that I was signed to by Lemmy with my other bands. So there's this burning desire to play over Wacken, but Sweet just played this last week, last couple.
Yeah.
At Wacken. I don't think we can do both of us could play the same festival years, but Andy has claimed that this is his final hurrah, putting out one last album. They're going to tour one last time, and then it's up to us to keep the Sweet name alive. So the future is definitely wide open for Europe and the UK and anywhere else that people want to hear. We're going to deliver it the right way.
Richie?
Yeah, exactly. Patrick summed it all up. I mean, this is in our blood. It's what we do. We played, we went with Priest. We did a couple shows in Europe as SP Sweet. We played with Slade, and we did Czechoslovakia and Germany, and the audience. And, a lot of times people will fly in to see our version out here in the U.S. as well. So we'd love to come to, and we will be coming, and we look forward to entertaining the audiences that truly love that the Sweet catalog and the way Priest told us to deliver. I mean, we've been doing a lot, and it basically every time it evolved, everybody just, when we got Mitch in the band, it was like, whoa. It has just evolved. That's all I can say. I mean, with Jimmy Burkhardt, it's just his guitar playing. Mitch, amazing. Burkhardt comes on, and it's the best band I've ever played in. I played in a lot of bands. It just has the right chemistry. I'm over the moon about this band. And you know what I like about it? It's camaraderie of this band too. We all get along. There's so many head trips in bands, but everybody in this band, except Patrick, no, just kidding. But no, it's really a great family feeling. No, it's a great family feeling, and people really feel it. They feel that energy. So many people just act out their parts. No, we live every beat, everything to the show, and now we're adding new stuff. So we're over the moons, and everybody out there in the audience, download, stream Little Miracle. Wherever you find it, you can just put in Little Miracle all over the place. You see the video and check it out.